Good morning. Welcome to Fix It Finance. We have a good one for you today. We are talking about budgeting today, budget guidelines, what that looks like, what makes budgeting go around, what works for budgeting. So we'll have a good one for you today. Okay, I'm just excuse me, getting my screen all set up. It's that time of the year again where the weather is starting to change. How was you guys this summer? Hope everyone had a good summer. Hope you did something you wanted to do. Hope you went to places you wanted to go. Hope you saw people you wanted to see. Hope you spent some quality time with your children, with your parents, with your siblings, with, you know, whoever is important to you in your life. Okay. So today we're talking about budget guidelines and I guess a brief history or brief summary or brief um how did we get here to this topic. So recently I recently stumbled on a particular show that I loved when I first moved to Canada. So I moved to Canada, I think 2005. My first year, my for grade 12. And in that, I remember when I used to be on residence in so I went to boarding school in grade 12. And you know, I would go to the common room and just turn on the TV and flip through the channels, blah blah blah. And I ended up stumbling on this show called where was it during high school or was it university? I think it was high school. I don't remember. Anyways, early when I first came to Canada, I ended up stumbling on this show called Till Death Do Us Part. So not death as in, dying, but debt, DEBT. And I love that show so much. I used to watch it all the time. And if anything, when I go started watching the show again, it just reminded me because in my mind I was like, oh, because sometimes how sometimes you ask yourself, how did I even get into all these finance things and blah 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 blah. And I realized, man, it's been a while. I've been into all these finance topics and cool. It's been a long time. So, it was just nice to remember, the early days. But anyways, I've been catching up on the show. It's on YouTube. It's I don't remember the channel. I can post it later if you want. But just catching up on the show, and it really got me thinking about some stuff that I wanted to share with you guys today. So as usual, my name is Fikayo. Welcome to Fix It Finance. This is the channel where I help you take control of your money and build the life that you want. My goal here is to help individuals and families take back control of their finances. I go live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So if you know somebody who knows somebody that can benefit from this, make sure you share and, of course, catch up afterwards. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments, both on Instagram and on Facebook and YouTube. I still remember there was a comment last week. Someone said, "I think their money is doing the more I look, the less I see." that made my week. But yeah, thank you so much to that person. I think his name was Soji. That was awesome. So today, like I mentioned, we're talking about budget guidelines. I kind of shared a little bit earlier about how I got into or not got into how just catching up on a particular show that I used to love watching when I was much younger. I'm talking like teenager, you understand? So okay, so today we're going to be sharing about different guidelines, different budget guidelines that are out there. So I'm not necessarily talking about um like going into specific examples as per, oh, okay, uh put your money in like, oh, $100 there, $100 there. No, instead I find, and this is definitely industry standard, what has definitely worked for different people and including myself, is when you do things based on ratios, you tend to have a system that works. Okay, so for example, I'm going to go into some examples. I'll share my screen and show you some of the different budget guidelines, including sharing a particular example of what we did from our budgeting perspective, so that you guys can learn from what we've done in the past. Okay, so just a brief summary. So one of the things I found in just doing this whole personal finance parole is that when it comes to systems thinking, I don't know, for those of you that study some of these various topics and whatnot, there's a particular Oh, it says my mic is muted. I think I'm back on now. Okay. Yeah, I unmuted it. Okay. What was the last thing I said? Let me see. Oh, bless you too, Joanne. Okay. Where did I mute the mic and how did I? So is it that you guys did not hear anything? Yeah, that's funny. Okay. I will start over. I haven't said too much yet. Okay, so today we're talking about budget guidelines. I mentioned my name is Fikayo. This is Fix It Finance. I go live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern, unless I let you know otherwise. Um, this is Fix It Finance, where I help you take control of your money and build the life that you want. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Um, my goal here at Fix It Finance is to help individuals and family take back control of their finances. So if you are here, you will definitely learn something. So I mentioned how I went, I ended up stumbling on a particular show on YouTube called Till Death Do Us Part. I used to watch this show when I was in high school. I loved the show. It's called Till Death Do Us Part. It's on YouTube if you ever want to watch it. So please feel free to um um you know jump on that. You will learn a lot. So today, like I mentioned, I'm sharing various budget guidelines, and showing how different schools of thought particularly break up a particular budget. Okay, so I'm not necessarily going into details of $100 here, $50 there. It's more percentages. Okay, and showing you how you can apply that to your life as well. And then I mentioned I will be sharing an example as well of what we did personally, in a particular season of life to help us prepare. And you can see how we broke down our budget in that particular order. Okay. I was going on a bit of a train of thought when it comes to systems thinking. So if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, it's the same thing. So if you understand systems thinking, if you've read the book Atomic Habits, they kind of boil down to the same thing. If you can get whatever it is you want to succeed at or whatever you want to achieve onto a system, it takes away the burden of having to think about it all the time. You understand? So for example, if you say you want to get fit, you're not doing much, you've chosen you're going to just walk, you're just going to decide you're going to walk for 1 hour every day. You've taken and you set a particular time that, okay, 6 o'clock or 6 in the evening, 6 in the morning each day, I am going to walk for 1 hour. You pick one of those times that works for you and you do it consistently. So you've put that thing on a system. It's no longer a burden for you to think about it and process it all the time. I find in when I help people when it comes to their finances, those that don't have a system, the burden is heavy there. But once you've gotten yourself on a budget, you've gotten yourself on a rhythm, you've gotten yourself on a plan, the burden tends to be lifted. Okay. So that's what we're talking about today. You understand? I'm gonna show you how you can put your budget on a system such that it takes away the burden of having to think about it all the time. Okay. So I mentioned for you guys to check out the show Till Death Do Us Part. It's on YouTube. It's a really good show. Like you learn quite a bit. And then those are some of my early exposures into personal finance. Like I mentioned, this was in high school that I was watching this show, because I just was interested. And then we'll get right into showing some of the budget standards that I was talking about. So another thing I wanted to share was there's a particular book I read this earlier on, and it just kept coming to my mind this week, so I thought I was going to share it with you guys. It's on YouTube. The audio book is on YouTube. It's free. I'm hoping it's legal. But it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. I really enjoyed that book. So if you're someone that's struggling to just understand personal finance overall, one of the reasons I really like it reads like a Bible story. That's one of the reasons I like it. I'm a Christian. I love the Bible. So the way this person narrates the story, it almost reads like a Bible story, almost like you're in the book of Kings or you're in the book of Second Samuel. And this is just like a side story that just happened, you understand, in that particular season. It's based on Babylon. So yeah. So if you are looking for an audiobook to read while you're walking, while you're getting ready in the morning, or while you're driving or commuting, The Richest Man in Babylon, I would highly recommend. The book also talks about how you can portion your budget or portion your money as things come in. It talks about paying yourself first, talks about settling your debts, you understand, talks about, putting X amount of percentage to debt, X amount of percentage to savings and whatnot. So it's really good. So, anyways, because of time, let us get into the meat of today's discussion. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and let me know if you can see it, please. Mm-hmm. Present. Share screen. I need a technical manager at this point. Oh, okay. Hmm. Okay. I froze for a second, so I'm assuming I froze on your end too. So let me there we go. Yay. Can we see this? I can see it, but I want to know if you can see it. If you can, please let me know in the comment section. Um okay. So we're looking at, so based on um personal finance theories that are out there and just around budgeting and whatnot, this is typically what you would see as the standard when it comes to budgeting. Okay. So, on average, people advise for you to spend no more than 35% on your housing. And again, when it comes to these ratios, these are, that amount or less. You understand? So 35% is not the starting point, it's the end point, okay? To a large extent. So if you're spending 40% on housing, you're definitely much higher than, the gurus want you to be, okay? So we'll go into what that looks like overall, because just knowing the state of the economy, and just things in general, it's not necessarily black and white for most people. So on average, so this is what you want to do. This, you can almost use this as a litmus test. Okay. So if you look at your budget for this month or for this year and say, okay, where am I sitting? This is standard. Okay. So this is okay. You shouldn't be spending more than 35% on housing, 15% on transportation, 15% on debt repayment, 15% on lifestyle, 10% on savings, and 10% on giving. So if you're looking at your budget and making an adjustment and saying, okay, where do I sit? Where do I stand? Am I doing well? Am I not doing well? You understand? This is a good way to kind of do that test and check out what is it you're doing. So, like I said, this is a standard version. So this is your English standard version. Okay. Um, if you take a look at the next one, so this, I went to Statistics Canada and I actually went and I looked at. Great question, Michael. So Michael is saying, are these percentages based on some research or empirical evidence? So yes, what this is based on, let me go back to the standard. What this is based on is, okay, based on the average lifestyle in North America, okay, based on what, you know, we see that causes success and failure in different people. If you make 100, let's say you make $1 million a year, because I've said I want to start using the big example to help us start thinking bigger. Let's say you make $1 million a year, okay? At least 350,000, no more than 350,000 should go to your housing. And what they found is, if more than that is going towards housing, you end up pushing yourself into a category of being, say, house poor. You understand? Because there's a whole lot of life that needs to happen outside of your housing. So, for example, if you have, say 60, 80% of your money going towards housing, then you don't have enough left to cover things like transportation, you understand, debt repayments, because if you have debt, saving, let's even say you're not a giver, you decide you don't want to give, you understand, there's still not enough. If you overspend on housing, there's not enough to cover the rest of life, and life includes everything from kids education, utility, well, no, utilities, I tend to put utilities in housing, some don't, but either way, it covers everything from your cell phone, your internet, you understand, travel, if that's what you're into. So basically, there's a whole lot of life outside of housing, right? And so that's why this is, what is usually recommended, so that at the end of the day, if anything were to happen to your income, for example, let's say in this household, this is a two-income household, right? And God forbid something happens to one person, and this person is, due to sickness, illness, or whatever, they cannot contribute to that house again. Let's say they lose 50% of their income, okay? If this household has 50% of their income going towards housing, then you notice they are in a big, big, big mess if that one person stops working. Okay, so that's one example of why they usually say based on standard, and this is just, what's out there in the personal finance community and whatnot. So this is not, there are other rules. I know there's like the 50 30 21, so we'll talk about a few different ones as we go in, but I hope, I'm sure that answers your question. So yes, so this is based on evidence, just history, working with clients, and just overall what they've seen in general. Like, okay, if a person is putting X amount towards housing and not enough towards, savings, for example, if there's an emergency tomorrow, then that house of cards tends to crumble. Okay, so let's look at the Statistics Canada one. So we've seen the standard. Now I actually went to Statistics Canada and went and looked at, okay, what are Canadians actually doing? Like, what is the real number? So most of this is based on 2023 numbers. Some are 2024, like recent, but the most recent for housing, I think it was 2019 or 2023. I think it's 2023 actually, or 2019. I have to, I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe it was 2019 numbers I used for housing. So based off of 2019, just before COVID, um the average Canadian was putting about 33%. You understand? So this is a good way to test and see, okay, now we're not necessarily trying to keep up with the Joneses, but how do you quote unquote measure up? Like when you look at, okay, what's happening in my household. Okay. So this is what Statistics Canada is saying. Canadians are typically putting 11% of their income towards uh 11% of their income towards transportation. They're putting about 15%, which is on par with standard, towards debt repayment, heavy on the lifestyle, okay, not enough savings. So saving around 7% per person. And then, of course, giving is 2%, it's pretty much, tiny. And then housing is sitting at around 33%, okay. So this is just based on statistics. This is where most people are at. So if we go, as an example, if you wanted to be a little more passive with your budgeting, like, okay, you want that lifestyle to be, top notch there, so let me quickly go back to standard. So if you look at the standard, one of the other things, for those who don't necessarily participate in giving, I'm Christian, right? So we are encouraged to give 10% of our income towards, charitable donations. So for those who don't give charitably, or don't give towards, charitable places, the lifestyle standard is actually 25%. So this 10% that I put here for giving is actually going towards the lifestyle section. Okay. So if we go back, if you wanted to be a little more passive, because there's some people that definitely believe in you only live once, and they want to enjoy their life now. They're not too concerned about the future, just because they don't even know if there's going to be a future by the time, and that's fine. This is a budget ratio that you could potentially use that helps you have a little bit more balance. So you have that 25% going towards lifestyle. You still have something going towards saving, because, and when I say saving here covers emergency fund and investing for the future. Okay, so saving here covers emergency fund and investing for the future. Now, definitely in this particular scenario, it's not necessarily enough going towards saving, but at least it's not nothing. Okay, so it's better than nothing. And of course, you have your giving. Again, if you're not into giving, this amount can be split between saving and the lifestyle section. Okay, and then you have your debt repayments, transportation, and of course, housing. As much as possible, each of these scenarios, like I mentioned, it's a maximum, it's not a minimum. Okay, so what you want to do is, if you find you are spending too much in lifestyle section, you want to find a way to cut back, you understand, so you can put more towards the rest of the sections. Okay, if you find you're spending, upwards of 30% on transportation, you are heavy on the transportation, so you definitely want to find a way to reduce or eliminate, whatever that burden is, so that you can put more towards other parts of life. You understand? um I'll show you an example of an aggressive, type budget. So aggressive in the sense of, this person is trying to get out of debt, for example. Okay. So, you know, in this particular example, we've backed up housing to 25%. There are actually a whole bunch of people out there that push for 25% when it comes to housing, not necessarily 35. um Transportation at 15, just because, and then debt repayment is heavy because this person is trying to get out of debt, and then lifestyle is reduced to pretty much nothing, 10%, so that all those funds are pushed towards, what actually matters. And then when this person is done with their debt repayment, for example, now they have freed up 30% of their cash flow, you understand, to put towards other things like saving, giving, lifestyle, or even more towards housing. You understand? For example, let's say, in the process of trying to get out of debt, you decide to go and rent in a cheaper place to be able to save more money and put that money towards debt. You understand? That's an example of how people reduce their housing costs. So you live in an apartment that costs you 2,500. You then decide to move to a place that costs you 1,500. You understand? That's $1,000 in your budget that has all of a sudden become free. Okay. Or, okay, I'll leave that example there just because I'm looking at time. I don't want to go over time today. Okay, so this is an example of an aggressive budget. So aggressive in the sense of you put a lot of pressure towards what it is you're trying to achieve at the time. So for example, you might decide, okay, you've paid off your current vehicle and then you want to start saving because you know your vehicle is going to die and you're going to have to buy a new one, but you don't want to go into debt when it's time to buy a new one. So you then decide, okay, I'm done paying off debt. I'm going to be heavy on transportation so that I can save towards that in the future. Okay. So let me give you an example of what we did personally when we were getting ready to so this is an example. So this is us. This was our 2023 budget. Okay. And this is just an example. This is where we ended up for 2023 in terms of our personal budget. Like this is the Usman household. Okay. And the reason I'm sharing this is because we switched aggressively to saving. That's because I'm currently on maternity leave. So this whole year I have not worked. Okay. And we knew we were going to need funds to be able to cover this year. So that means for 2023, because I found that I was pregnant early enough in 2023. So we switched all gears towards aggressive saving. You understand? Okay. So for example, if you calculate our housing ratio, so as of 2023, it was around 17.2%. But as of if you count it as of this year, again, because the income line has adjusted and whatnot, it's probably going to be higher. But on average, as a household, we shoot for 25% or less when it comes to housing. Okay. And that's just because we truly believe there's a lot of life outside of housing. Okay. And we are lucky enough to live in a city that housing is still affordable. Okay. So if that's not your case, if that's not where you live, you don't live in a city where things are necessarily affordable, this is how you can break up your quote unquote pie and look at your finances holistically so you can know where you need to adjust. Okay. It's not, like I mentioned, it's not about being faultless, or it's about being faultless. So you can have a clear picture of what's happening in your house and adjust accordingly. Okay. Because you are in control of what goes to what section. Okay. In your budget. So if this is your budget is the circle, you are in control of what goes where. Okay. So this is what I mean by an example of an aggressive budget. Okay. In the sense of, because we knew we were expecting, right? I see a comment here from Minnie. She says, I use a similar budget pie for my budget that I documented. Nice, nice. What's your channel name? Please share it so we can know. Um, so yes, you definitely want to focus on this so that you know what your own budget pie is looking like. Okay. So if you're heavy on for example, we had a bit of debt that we wanted to clear up. You understand? So one of the reasons, her channel is Mini on Cam. Thank you so much for sharing. One of the things that, like I mentioned, we did was to save aggressively because we were expecting. Okay. So now 2024, this budget pie looks very different. You understand? Because again, I wasn't working and whatnot, and we don't have any debt. You understand? And we cut our lifestyle again because I was at home to a large. Well, did we really cut our lifestyle? I think our lifestyle increased a little bit because we bought a lot of baby stuff. Yes, that's another thing. So again, you can move this around as you see fit. Okay. And the reason one of the reasons I really wanted to share this was this housing example. Like people, I want you to believe it's not, again, when I look at examples and I go to Statistics Canada and I check on some of these things, while on average people are spending around 33%, it's still very possible to spend less than that, wherever possible. Okay. Because housing is just a huge, massive chunk, you understand, of what we spend on the regular. And okay, I won't beat that horse too much. Let me go to I guess the next thing I wanted to share. If I were looking at what an ultimate type situation looks like, personally, this is what these are some of the things that I personally, well, we as a family are aiming for. You understand? If we can get our housing, because I think we're spending, conservatively on housing, especially now that our family is growing and whatnot, we're definitely going to have to move things around. And then things like transportation, for example, while the vehicles are paid off, we know we're going to have to buy another one in the future. So it's better to start saving now so that when the cars finally decide to end their life, their useful life is done, you have enough setup, ready to go. And then, like I mentioned, saving is not just saving. This includes emergency funding, uh, what do you call it? Investing for the future, investing in children's education, investing in, all these other things. And that's one of the reasons why we always teach here, like, keep your housing as much as possible low so that you can put enough towards life. You understand? Life in general, including the future and current. So lifestyle for me seems like present day. Savings and co seems like tomorrow. You understand? Okay. There's a comment here from Minnie. She says she's on Canadian disability. Financial planning is leaving out the challenges of a person. Interesting. Wow, that is very interesting. Wow. If that's interesting. Hmm. I would be, I guess, maybe in offline or something. I'd be curious to dig deeper into what, that looks like, for sure. Hmm. Okay. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now because I think we get the picture. Okay. Everything for, oh, there we go. Okay. So I think I'm gonna stop it here. But I really hope you've had a chance to you've had a chance to understand what I mean by budget guidelines. Like, you are the one in charge of your pie, okay? In charge of your budget. So you saw the standard, you understand? You saw the standard as per where ideally you want to end up. Okay. So this is standard. This is based on, you know, personal finance industry and what that looks like overall when in terms of dealing with people. You've also seen Statistics Canada, okay, looking at what people are actually doing. Canadians in general are not saving enough. Canadians in general are spending enough, like a good amount on housing, not too what's the word, not too much on housing. You understand? We are very definitely heavy on the lifestyle again, and that's why when we talk about here on Fix It Finance, how to avoid overconsumption. We've talked about that a few times. How to not get sucked into that, consumer life whereby everybody and their auntie wants you to always be buying something or be renting something or be having payments on something. Okay. So if we can find a way to tackle those two areas of life, you would find there's a whole bunch that can be freed up in your budget and whatnot to go from there. So yeah, and I also give an example of how, we went a little aggressive when it came to our budgeting because we were expecting and we knew we were going to need some cash flow for when I would be on maternity leave. And yeah, I shared another example of what, an ultimate budget for us would look like, or in general, whereby you have a good chunk of your income going towards, the future, not the future, and setting yourself up for, ideal success. Thank you so much for joining us today. Apologies for when I was muted. I had no idea. See you in the next video. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.